just a couple bad weather fans representing New York, talking all things sports. Man, what could go wrong? We got Alex, who's a fan of the Knicks, and Mike of the Nets. The yin-yang of the tri-state, place your bets on the Yankees, Giants, Mets, or Jets. Yeah, you should listen if it's sparking your interest. If you made a vow to your team, don't break it. Bad weather fans is the relation.
That's right, this is Bad Weather Fans, episode number 237. Mike Biseglia, Alex Benesowitz, and we're presented by DraftKings. Don't forget, everybody, you can find us on YouTube. Check it out and subscribe. Hit that like button. You can find all of our episodes, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you consume your podcast. We've had some amazing interviews in the past. Go ahead and check out that catalog. And my good friend Alex over here does such a nice job with the YouTube page, hitting up the shorts. Not the shorts you're wearing, but the YouTube things. Does an awesome job. And Alex, speaking of amazing jobs on YouTube, we have our guest tonight, Troy, with the Knicks Recap podcast. And Alex, you and I have been, we've known Troy for a little bit, and just so impressed with how he has blown up his YouTube page. So I'll let you do the introduction, because I'm not going to say nice things about Knicks fans. So I'll let you do it.
Yeah, no, Troy has crushed it. You know, I went on his show early on, and you know, I saw the vision, and I was like, this guy's got it together, and I was right. And you know, it's all because of me. No, I'm just kidding. And it was great, man. You're crushing it, and really, you know, happy for you. And you know, it's nice to see good things happen to good people. So thanks for coming on the show, Troy. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. I appreciate you, Alex, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on. I've been a fan of your show as well, too. Obviously, been watching you guys for a while. So to be on with you guys, especially with the growth of the YouTube show, it's just amazing. So thank you guys again. Yeah,
and how much of that growth have you seen? Because the Knicks, a team now that's on the rise with championship aspirations. What's it been like for you when you started? Essentially to now, where you know this year you're going in with championship on the mind as a content creator and as a Knicks fan?
You know, I think before you used to reach for stories to find, because there really wasn't anything to talk about. Now you don't really have to reach for anything. It's every day somebody's talking about the Knicks, somebody's saying something about the Knicks, talking about either if we're a contender, we're going to the finals, is OKC and the Knicks. Kendrick Perkins, the governor, is going on ESPN constantly talking about the Knicks, giving us constant content. So, I mean, it's the excitement. I think no matter what you talk about with the Knicks, it's just exciting. Everything is exciting now. I think that's the major difference now for every content creator.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, it with the Knicks fans, they're always creating things for themselves as well. Like with the Randle stuff, every year he's getting traded, every year is this and that, you know, and I've kind of given up after a couple of years ago where it felt like he was absolutely getting traded after the year after the fourth seed year when they had the down season with Tibbs. And I was like, all right, it's over. He's got to get traded. And then he didn't get traded. I'm like, oh, he's never getting traded. And then this summer, the same rumors from fans making up stories again. And then all of a sudden, today or yesterday, whenever you're watching or listening to this, they, you know, Earl the Pearl Monroe opened up a school and Randle helped raise money, and they named the gym after him, and they're all there, all the great Knicks from Clyde to you know, everybody, even Tim Thomas was there, and which is hilarious to me. But you know, he's a Knick great, man. He's a Knick great. So, you know, take us through that. What do you think? Like Knick fans are just, you know, looking for content by talking about Julius Randle getting traded, or do you think that there is some smoke to that being his contract year now?
Well, it's exactly what it is. It's because there's nothing to talk about. What are you going to talk about? The Knicks are a championship contender. So besides talking about that, the only other thing to talk about is the fact that Julius Randle has not signed that extension. So because of that, that leads to the trade talk, not to mention the fact that if you were going to trade Julius Randle, you'd have to tell me who is worth trading Randle for, who's going to potentially give you 25, 10, and 5 a night, or you can even lower that now. Maybe it's going to be 10, you know, 20, 10, and 8 a night. You know, I don't know what Randle's going to be capable of this year, but the fact that some fans anyways, don't even want to see it. They want to trade it away before we get a chance to see what Jalen, what Mikal, what OG, Julius, and I guess with the center position, I mean, you know, probably Sims at this point, depending on what they do until the trade deadline.
Or Randle.
Or Randle. I mean, listen, we're going to see. I knew we were going to see some small ball before, and when, you know, Thibs did the Q&A with NBA.com, but he said 15 minutes at most at that point. Now with the Mitchell Robinson being out till, you know, January, basically, who knows at this point what's going to happen with that and, you know, his plans for the center position. But I think right now the fans, some fans anyways, have a point to pick at anything that isn't resolved, and the Randle thing is just the most biggest thing that is not resolved.
I think for the Knicks, I've said this before on Bad Weather Fans. I think it's now a bigger problem, obviously, with your starting center hurt and unreliable. I think it's fair to say at this point, injury prone. Right or wrong, how you feel about how he got hurt with Embiid, he's consistently hurt, and I think that's something as a Knicks fan you have to be worried about when you get to later in the season. From my point of view, I can't imagine Tibbs, who has no faith in anybody he doesn't trust, giving Jericho Sims, unless he has some sort of metamorphosis offseason, there is no chance in hell he gets serious minutes when it matters, and it will be Randle and Villanova plus whoever with a small lineup. I can't imagine.
You don't believe in Sims shooting in the gym, in the practice shots in the gym?
There is no way you will ever see a serious. If the Knicks are going for a championship, Jericho Sims isn't playing. I mean, seriously,
you're gonna get some hate from Mike Bibby, man. You're gonna get a lot of hate from Mike Bibby. I'm telling you right now. He's been training this kid. All right, he's been in the gym with them. Mark Bryant, newest Knicks assistant head coach, regarding just helping big men in terms of developmental. So I think that he's been working with them. Here's the thing: I don't know if anybody's been mentioning this. So Alex, I don't know if you want to go to this really quick, but one of the things we were supposed to talk about was the Mitch situation when the Knicks found out, right? So with Ian Bagley, shout out to him, SNY. He was on the Zach Lowe podcast recently. Shout out to Zach Lowe, by the way. I can't believe
R.I.P. Yes, Zach Lowe podcast. Yeah,
right. ESPN letting him go. I can't believe that happened. But regardless, anyways, when he was on the podcast, he was mentioning about when the Knicks had found out when Mitchell Robinson potentially was going to miss significant time. Maybe not the exact amount of time, but at least significant time. And he revealed it was in August. And then Steph Bondy, the New York Post, reported that Sims has been working with Mark Bryant since mid-August. Now, we can talk about maybe, irony here, whatever the case may be. I think those two things are related. So maybe we think that Sims is not going to get the most time, but the reports that are coming out right now is that the Knicks are very happy with the depth and the versatility of their roster. So because of that and the fact that they're limited with the assets they can trade anyways, it would seem like they're trying to build up till they get to a point where they can trade, which would be December 15th come the trade deadline. So until you get there, you have to find a way to get there. And if you look at the roster in terms of height, athleticism, and somebody who can get you rebounds and potentially blocks, if Sims does take that next step, he potentially could fill in exactly for Mitchell Robinson. But again, it's contingent on him taking that next step.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of contingent with my teams in championships that didn't go right. I can tell you from experience. I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well and can take that next step.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy.
But
he really is.
Realistically, when it's all said and done and Tibbs is going for a title, he's not playing. I mean, unless Mike Bibby, is a sorcerer and changes it. I just because of the Knicks timeline, and this is the team that can win a title, I think you just have to, everybody's got to bite their lip, bite through it. And then when Mitch comes back, when the trade happens that needs to happen, and the Knicks there's so much time left, right? How things get sorted out. Who knows? Maybe Deuce McBride is a chip that goes and the Knicks get a piece back and they make it work, right? But I think at the end, when we get to serious playing time, when this is about the Knicks versus the Sixers, the Knicks versus the Pacers, the Knicks versus the Celtics, he's nowhere going to be found on the basketball court.
Yeah, but I think Sims, the one thing that he does have going for him this offseason is that he had injuries the last few summers that we didn't really know about as fans, that he wasn't able to train all summer. And then he came into camp and he didn't miss any time, but it was just kind of, we didn't know. And now all of a sudden, this is the first summer he's really had time to work on his game, be healthy the whole time. So that's the one thing he has going for him. And Tibbs has shown over time that he has developed talent, from RJ Barrett to Emmanuel Quickly to Deuce McBride. All these kinds of guys, and the players that he hasn't been able to develop, quote unquote, just haven't been really good, like Cam Reddish or things of that, people like that. So I really do think I'm going to give Jericho Sims a chance, to see what he does, and I have an open mind. But it's sink or swim time for him. It really is. Like, this is it. This is your last chance, and he's not going to start, like, that's for sure. But he's going to play. He's going to be in the rotation at least the first 2-3 months of the season until Mitch comes back.
The weird part, Alex, is that in that same interview, Ian Bagley said that he believes he could start at center, at least for opening night. Now, I don't know how much, smoke there is to that. It could be something that's put pressure going into camp just to create that more, higher competition level. And I think the Knicks training camp this year is going to be probably one of the most competitive camps I've ever seen, given the the Exhibit 9 and 10 people that we have, I mean, these are legit NBA prospects. They're not rookies. You got, Mook Morris there. You got Landry Shamet. You got Chuma Okeke. I mean, these guys,
Campaign. Yeah.
right. Well,
Yeah.
Campaign has the
The real
right,
contract, right?
right.
Yeah.
But in regards to just like having more talent and making it competitive, absolutely. So I can see that's some of the reasons why. But also to your point, it's Jericho Sims' time, it's his opportunity. Who's there at camp to compete with him? There's
Precious
nobody.
Achiuwa is really the only other guy, and he's
Right.
not even a big though. He's a big, but he's a small big.
Right,
Yeah,
he's 6'8".
so, yeah,
He's six.
yeah,
Jericho Sims is 6'10", and he can
right.
jump you out of the gym. He
Right.
has to seize
He's
his
got the
opportunity.
body, yeah, athleticism. He needs to do it. This is it for him. So I don't know. It sucked hearing the Mitch news, and it really did. It was really, really a downer because I always said, even before, the Hartenstein stuff, that Mitch was better than Hartenstein. I really do believe that. I think he just has the ability to be like a top defender in the league. He already is a top defender in the league. He's one of the few players that can stick a Joel Embiid and slow him down. Nobody can stop him, but slow him down. He stayed with him. And that's why Embiid hurt him, because he knew he's the guy that could do it. He's blocked his shots in the past in the regular season matchups and things of that nature. But he can't stay healthy, and it's really sucks. And I know this one wasn't his fault. It's kind of got screwed, but he's a little injured already going into it. But either way, like, the Hartenstein loss definitely hurts a little more now. I wasn't worried about it because of Mitch, and I thought this is the time he's going to stay healthy. I don't want to give up on him. I have PTSD from Marcus Camby, so he's just the exact same player. And it's just, I'm scared he's going to go to like the Nuggets and lead the league in blocks and become defensive player of the year and finally stay healthy, finally put it all together somewhere else. Like, we spent all this time developing him. He's the longest tenured Knick. Why give up on him now? Because he's going to miss the first 2 months of the season. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know, but we'll see what happens.
I've really lost my patience with Mitch, Alex. I mean, I feel like I think that he does so many good things when available, right? Rebounding. I mean, offensive rebounding monster. When he's available, probably the best in the league. Second chance opportunities. That's the reason the Knicks are so good. You lose that, that's a huge part of who the Knicks are. So to be able to replicate that, I mean, there's not many players in the league who can do what Robinson can do. So when he's a force out there for you and he's there, of course, you can see the benefit. But when he's not there and the availability is lacking, he's not even starting the season this year. Each and every year, like, he plays less and less games. Now this year, he's not starting potentially till January. And I understand they're bringing him along slowly because they want to make sure he doesn't get injured. According to Steve Popper as well, too, they're going to do that with, big men who have ankle injuries and knee injuries. But just because you do that doesn't prevent injury. So he could come back, God forbid, something else could happen to him, a freak accident, whatever the case may be. He gets injured again. We can't keep having a question mark going into the season with the roster that we have. We have a window. We need to maximize it. That's why I think a trade is inevitable at this point. Whether you love Mitch or you hate him at this point, regardless, it doesn't matter. If he's not going to help us get to the goal, then he's a piece that needs to be traded with somebody else to get us to that goal. So for me, the writing's on the wall with Mitch. His time is already up. The Knicks already know it too, but right now they can't trade him for anything because what are you going to trade him for? His value's at the ground. But sooner or later, once they can, they will.
Right. Go ahead, Mike.
Alluded to that before with Deuce and whoever the player is. It would be malpractice from Leon Rose to have a roster this good, this far, and go into the playoffs without a big body. You need somebody down the road in these series. I mean, you look at the Knicks. I mean, they ran out of gas last year. Everybody got hurt. You want to blame Tibbs or not? That's a fun conversation that we'll have again in 7 months when something happens again, right? But for the moment, you look back, you need bodies. Yeah. You need bodies. You need bigs. This conversation, I miss when we started doing this stuff, and I'd have fights with Alex about if RJ Barrett is good or not. That's the kind of content I need. We don't need to be sitting here.
Well, and the Nets had a super team, and the Knicks were trying to scrap it and piece it together. Yeah,
15 minutes debating. Like, look at Kevin Durant, Alex. Every year he got hurt, 6 to 8 weeks out. Every year he got hurt. Now,
even this year, right? He got hurt this year too. Yeah,
a little different with different level of player. But the point is, Mitch gets hurt. Durant was starting to get hurt. Something would always occur with Kyrie Irving, his fault or not his fault. He was off the court. Some players, it's just inevitable. So I'm with Troy here that I don't think Mitch lasts the season. But I want to get back to just like when the Knicks suck conversations and not this, and you know,
Right.
Oh, man.
the small back
I
and
don't
forth
want
about
that.
the starting center.
But Mitch is still only 26 years old. I mean,
Doesn't
he's coming
matter.
into his
It's an old-
prime.
doesn't
You know?
you've fallen in love with him from the draft, from the
Oh,
start.
yeah. No,
and-
he's my
and
guy.
not- and
No,
not
I know.
seeing
Well, Alex, let me ask you
the
something.
full picture of what the Knicks need to do.
Let me ask you something about Robert Williams III. Then that's another person rumored with the Knicks right
Yeah.
now. Would you feel the same about him? He's young too, right?
Yeah, he's young, but he's young. He's bounced around now. And
He's
did he
essentially
play
Mitch.
much last year? Did he
Not
even
really.
play? No, like he
Not
was
really.
out last year, right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like he was toast. So I don't know about him. And the other rumor was from Ian Begley was Clint Capella, and I was like, I don't know how that would work. You'd have to trade Randall to get him. You know what I mean? It's because of the salaries and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I hate him. You know, from those Hawks series. You know, I wouldn't want him.
Fast. You changed that. All
No, I
changes
know.
very fast.
I would have a preference of not having him. Like I never wanted Spencer Dinwiddie on the Knicks because he's a punk, you know. But like other than
not
that,
good
like,
anymore. Doesn't
and he's
help.
not good anymore. Yeah, that
Have
definitely
Ben Simmons
works.
if you want him. He's still young.
Oh, you heard it's
Still-
cleared for camp, Mike.
he's
You
cleared
know,
for
Ben
camp,
Simmons
but-
cleared for camp.
He is Ben Simmons. Will not be. He'll play a few minutes. It's the same.
Play
it's the
10
same-
games and then be
it's
like,
the
my
same
back
routine.
hurts. Yeah.
He'll play a couple minutes.
Whoa. I heard this is the comeback year from Ben. This is everybody's been telling me.
From who?
This is what I've heard from, everybody on
All the
Nets
trainers.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trainers are
there is
telling
no
me.
net fans saying they.
Chris
play Ben
Brickley
Simmons.
was
Yeah,
telling me
listen.
that, saying that it's Ben Simmons, comeback year.
No, there's
Next
no-
year coming back.
Where Ben Simmons is not part of the Nets' future. It's just not. But the beautiful part about Ben Simmons is it's $40 million off the cap in the next year.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful thing because when your highest paid player doesn't play and just rots on the bench, it's a problem. But the
Right.
good news is $40 million off the books. The Nets are going to have a ton of cap space to make maneuver and do some things. Obviously, all the draft capital in the world, and because of that, it all started when the Nets traded Mikal Bridges to the Knicks. I'm on the record here of saying this was in the moment I was pretty pissed off.
Just because it was a Knicks.
Just because it was the Knicks. But
Yeah.
the haul that the Nets got back for Mikal Bridges.
And then the second trade after that, right? Like
well,
the
that's
other
key.
trade.
The key was the trade after. The Nets now hold their own future. They can tank and not have to worry about other teams. They have a bajillion draft picks, which doesn't mean they're going to use them all, but they have flexibility now. They're going to have cap space. As much as it sucked to see Mikal go to the Knicks, inevitably for the franchise, it's saved the franchise, and at least it has an opportunity now to at some point compete for a championship down the line.
I think the Nets were. I think first of all, I can't believe that trade even happened between the Knicks. I was shocked. I mean, of course, there were reports out there, very, very small reports. I think Bill Simmons had a report saying that he knows that Mikal were gonna,
fantasy
but nobody
land.
right. But nobody really knew. Even Mikal, like to credit everybody else who said he forced the trade. Him himself said he didn't say anything about trade.
Jalen did it.
Probably.
We had
Or
Jake
Josh.
Fisher on this podcast. And he threw us off the scent, me and Mike. He was like, he is not getting traded unless Jalen says, I want Mikal. And like he literally said that. And that's why we're like, he's like, I don't think that'll happen. But that was just his thoughts. So he would me and Mike were totally shocked. We're like, yeah, there's no way Jake Fisher told us it's not going to happen. And then it happened. So, that was crazy.
That's unreal because the thing is when I first saw the trade, I already knew we needed Mikal. I've said it. I think I've said it for years, even before he even joined the Nets, that I wanted Mikal here because of the way his style of play, Iron Man under Tom Thibodeau, like that. Having two players like that, because at the time Julius Randle was also Iron Man, and I think minus the freak accidents, he can come back to be that again. You have two players like that under a Tom Thibodeau head coach, and I think just by association, if your whole team plays defense, you are just going to play defense as well too. I think that matters, and I think the Mikal Bridges deal, even though I will admit it was a slight overpay because that's a lot of first round picks, I would have
New York tax.
Yeah, I would like to keep one of them. I think it was the going into 2031, right? That was the unprotected one. I'd like
They're
to
all
keep
unprotected.
Right. But that's the one that I did not want to give up. Like I was okay with, a couple other years. I'd like to keep that one, but it was a necessary overpay to get us the final piece. Because without Mikal, we're not a championship contender. You could ask anybody in the league, if you make one trade to become a championship contender and open a window that I've never seen in my lifetime, is that something do I want to see? Absolutely. And I think the Knicks have it now. 2 or 3 years, I think is more or less what they have. They can maximize it depending on the contracts that they give out and what they do over the next couple of years. And I think they will do that given the Jalen Brunson signing. But the contract sign that he did, amazing, 113 million left on the table. But the Mikal Bridges thing, again, I think there's positives and negatives to it. But the Nets definitely got out with a lot of pieces. I think they have a good chance to rebuild their future. But the problem with the Nets is, and this is where I have no faith, I think I've seen them here before, and there's going to be a time where something shiny is going to come out of the side of their eye, and instead of going the full direction like they're supposed to do, they're going to pivot and throw it all to that, and then go right
Jimmy
back
Butler.
to where they were.
Well,
Jimmy Butler.
Maybe
I will
Jimmy
say,
Butler.
I will disagree on that because, one, here's why. I hope they don't go to the Jimmy Butler shortcuts, whatever it might be, and they take the full rebuild. But at the time, signing Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and then trading for James Harden is not a shortcut. It is going for a championship. Those are 3 of the all-time players. Now, it failed. I'm not going to sit here and say it worked. It was an all-time failure. But to Sean Marks, to have those 3 guys prime-ish with Kyrie, Durant, and Harden in it, I would say, as well as he was playing then, Harden a little past it at that time. But to get those 3 guys in that moment, what they lost because they got hurt and they couldn't compete with Milwaukee with no Kyrie, no Harden. They almost won with Durant doing it himself. But I don't think they took a shortcut then. I don't want them to take a shortcut now, but at that time, it was years of rebuild. Because remember, they got Kyrie and Durant. They didn't trade. They just signed them. They didn't trade them.
Right.
They signed them to the roster that was already a 6 seed. So I will disagree that they took a shortcut then. I think they did the right approach, but I hope they don't, in this kind of rebuild, take a shortcut, bring in Jimmy Butlers and go full in on sucking. That's what I would like. So
the only way I would say bring Jimmy Butler smart is if they win the lottery and get Cooper Flag. Then you want to surround them with some players to teach them how to be in the NBA and get some wins and not be like a crappy team while you're putting up numbers. That's the only way for the Nets. But the rumors are Tim Hardaway Sr. was just on, I think, Up in Smoke podcast, and he said Jimmy Butler is falling out of favor with Pat Riley. So
I buy it.
I think there is some smoke there because Jimmy Butler is wearing all these funny little hats and these little games, and Pat Riley's not about that kind of stuff. He's old school. Show up and play.
Let me bring this right back though to the Mikal stuff. I will say I've nothing personal that I ever want to see somebody fail. But boy, would it be so sweet to see Mikal suck. That would just be amazing. Because I lost a lot of respect for him this past season.
Before the trade. No, yeah, you did.
Before the deal.
Yeah.
I think
the podcast, the roommates podcast. Yeah.
I think he's going to be way better for the Knicks. He has to. Let me put it this way. If he's the Mikal that he was in Brooklyn, that he is for the Knicks, holy shit, is that a fuck up? I can't imagine.
Well, the first year Mikal wasn't so bad.
But if he's this second year Mikal with the Knicks, then I'll be like, something happened. I expect him to be much better with what he's getting himself into, with a much better coaching staff, much better players, having to be the 3rd, 4th option, whatever. I can't imagine that Mikal will be as bad as he was this year. He's not a leader. He couldn't lead. That was clear. He doesn't have to do that with the Knicks. His best friends can do that for him. I would be stunned if he's as bad as he was in Brooklyn. I expect him to be much better with the Knicks. And if he isn't, I mean, that will go down as a terrible trade. But I like I said, I never want personal things against people, but man, I'd love to see him fail with the Knicks.
Mike, just to be honest with you, because this might hurt your feelings a little bit. I think that Mikal Bridges might be one of the most efficient players on the Knicks this season. Not only can he never be the same Mikal in Brooklyn because he's never going to be or have that role in New York. That role belongs to Jalen Brunson, and right after him is Julius Randle.
Agreed.
So that's why it's perfect for him, because he kind of goes back to the role he played with the Phoenix Suns in a way, but to a higher level now, because now he even more so understands his role. He has chemistry with the players that are around him. So I think, and I think that he's in a situation that he wants to be, right? Agreed. I think that, so now that all of those things are in place, and obviously situation matters, where you play matters. I think that he is ready to take that next step. Even the trainers that he's been working out with, everybody around has been saying since he's come to New York, he's just been in the gym trying to work on his shot, trying to work on his game, because he's even said it to himself. He's a more efficient player than what he showcased that year in Brooklyn. And I think if you look at his whole, totality of his career, he's a more efficient player than that 1 year would suggest. So I think just taking out that outlier from it, I think the Knicks not only are going to get the right Mikal, but he is the exact type of fit we need for this team, because the role that we were missing is his. The defense we need, he gives you, and the shots that are open now, he's the one that takes them, not RJ Barrett. He's the early sub, not RJ Barrett. He's the corner three-point shooter, not RJ Barrett. That change is so significant that it's going to be hard to stop anything the Knicks can do, because you can't double anybody inside anymore, because then you have to leave somebody at the corner. You leave somebody at the corner, that's almost an automatic three. Can't do it.
I agree. I do agree. Mikal is not a number one. He's not a leader. He doesn't know how to lead people. He needs to follow the leaders. But we will connect when he goes 3 for 14 from those corners in a game that you need. My cell phone number, 201. You ready? You writing this down? And we will communicate that day. He has a shitty game, and you will remember it's not always perfect with him. And I will say, I agree with everything the points you're making. But my goodness gracious, if he does not do what you're saying, that's a bad fuck up.
It is, but at the end of the day, Knicks could have won the championship last year if they stayed healthy without Mikal Bridges. And I know they don't have Isaiah Hartenstein now, and Mitchell Robinson's banged up, but he's the perfect fit. And the fact that they didn't add another big as a backup is the only misstep for Leon Rose. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, like most Knicks fans. I think I speak for most Knicks fans when I say that, all right, everything that he has done has worked for the most part, since that second year with the Kemba and the Fournier stuff. Ever since that, everything he's touched has turned to gold. And you just have to give the guy the benefit of the doubt now. I said this before, when they lost Hartenstein, I said this, I was like, every time Leon Rose is in a position where everybody's like, he has to do X, he just doesn't do it. And then he pushes through and it just works. So this is where they didn't sign a backup big. And yeah, they have Precious Achiuwa, who's a great insurance. Thank God they re-signed him. It's going to work out, in my opinion, because of that, just the blind faith. But if the backup center becomes a problem when we think it's a problem, then that's when Knicks fans have a right to be like, you're ruining this season. We have this perfect roster, and all you had to do was add a backup. Bates Diop is not the guy. You know what I'm saying? There's guys there's got to be somebody out there that they could get, and maybe they're waiting for the buyout market. Maybe they have some insider, scoop that they know they're going to get somebody. Maybe Mitchell Robinson knows he's getting traded. That's why he's putting out these cryptic IG messages, and I don't know. It's something to think about. I really do think they can win the championship this year. With Mitch hurt, it's kind of hurting that, surety that I had, if that's a word. I don't know if that's a word.
It is today.
It is today. And I'm, I don't know. I just hope that they can add somebody, and I hope that, Sims just takes a step. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know.
And the Nets recently announced that Vince Carter's jersey will be retired. Vince, one of the all-time New Jersey Nets. Nets never got past the second round with him, Jason Kidd, Richard Jefferson, but still some good times with VC in New Jersey. And once the Nets announced that they would have his jersey retirement, here come the Toronto Raptors. Of course, VC started his career there, and the Raptors announced about a couple months earlier they'll do the Vince Carter signing. This personally annoyed the shit out of me as a Net fan. It's just very petty because the Raptors made a mistake. But Troy, from you, your thoughts when you saw all of this go down and the scenario with the Raptors, swooping in and saying, all right, Vince, here's your jersey night a couple months early.
I definitely saw that. I thought that was very, very funny. I thought that the Raptors should have done it first, honestly. So I thought that the fact
years
that the
ago,
Nets, right, they should have been done it. But the fact that they didn't, then they saw the Nets do it. I think at that point, we have to do it now. So they did it. But I think that where the mistake was that even though they did it second, What they should have done was have the courtesy of doing it after the Nets did it first, because they announced it first. So allow them to do it first. But instead, I believe the Nets are doing it in January and the Raptors are doing it in November. So clearly undercut them in that. I don't think that was great to do. Look, it's great for Carter. He gets his jersey retired twice. That's great, right? So great shout out to him. He deserves it. But I can understand why some people who are Net fans would be upset about that, because it definitely was an undercut. No doubt about it. They should have waited till after. Not only did they announce it after, but they took away your shine, because now they're going to do it first. Everybody's going to remember that one more than the Nets one, I think.
And as they should, because, I love Vince first time in New Jersey, but I'm, VC, when people think of Vince Carter, they're not going to think of him with the Nets. They're going to think of Raptors in that dunk contest, which I obviously totally get. So I'm like, Toronto, get your shit done earlier and the feud that you had, and do the right thing. It's almost like, you see your significant other with an ex, and then all of a sudden you're like, you get jealous, and then you make the quick move to get married. It's like, they should have just done this. It's just so petty. I just thought it was a real bad move for the Raptors, Alex.
You know what I would do if I was the Atlanta Hawks? I would run up the Raptors. The first day of the season. I mean, get him out there.
Exactly.
Be like, he hit the last shot before COVID, and let's hang his number up in the rafters and beat everybody to the punch. That'd be hilarious. But yeah, it's messed up, and it's really petty. It's really bad. It's like if the Rockets decide to retire T-Max jersey, the Raptors going to jump in front and be like, hey, let's retire his number 2.
Probably.
Yeah. So it's kind of corny. It looked kind of corny. It was really bad on the Raptors. The fact that they didn't do it for years, and even I know they had problems with him, and when he left, the divorce was a really bad divorce, and it was a lot of bad blood there for a long time, and it was only recently that they all squashed it with somehow the city of Toronto and him made up, and he was allowed back at games, and everything was cool. They should have done it right then, and I don't know why they would. I don't think anybody's worn his number, so like I don't understand the issue there, but it is kind of petty, but it's kind of funny. I like whenever Mike gets angry about the Nets, it makes me laugh. It was just like
it's
really
New
funny.
Jersey Nets stuff will get me mad. That stuff will get me irritated.
What about Brook Lopez? If the Bucks retire Brook Lopez's jersey first before the Nets,
he's still playing. I mean,
he did win a title there, So
he hurt the Nets in that series. Where do you have the Knicks going this season?
For me, I think they're firmly they're top 3 in the East right now. The power is shifted now, right? Whatever the top 3 used to be, it's no longer that case. It's Boston, it's the Knicks, and it's Philadelphia, really in that order. And I'm not even that worried about Philadelphia, because they're about a wind away, like maybe a breeze away from somebody getting injured and something going, derailing that entire season for them. Your 2 superstars cannot be 2 of the most injury-prone players in the world. Can't happen that way. And then you can't leave everything to Tyrese Maxey on his shoulders. I'm sorry, that kid is great, but you can't let him do all that. So I'm not too worried about that. I think the Knicks are going to have an amazing year just because of the way we're built. The only problem is I would feel a lot more confident, or I was more confident when we had Mitchell Robinson starting. When we had Mitch, I was at 62 games for the Knicks this season. Now, I know that sounds like a high number.
Not to me.
I feel like the Mikal Bridges deal was a major move. And I think nobody even talks about the fact that because of that, we had to move one of our best players who were starting in Dante to the bench. Our bench gets instantly better because of that. Nobody's taking into account how much damage he's going to do against bench players when he was lighting up starters for the entire season. Don't get even started with Dante DiVincenzo. It's going to be different. But I thought that was going to be the case for the Knicks. With the Mitchell Robinson injury, I don't know. I really have to see how they handle that center position, because the way Tom Thibodeau coaches, the 5 is the central part of all of his defensive schemes. Even if you want to throw Julius Randle at the 5, you're going to limit his game because he's going to play differently in terms of how a 5 needs to play versus how he would play at power forward, because the need is going to be a little bit different. When he's going to be the center in the paint, he's going to need to rebound a little bit, be a body to throw at somebody else. Now, it's different if they do something that I was hoping they do, where they play Randle on offense at the 5 and OG at the 5 on defense. Because if you do that and you do that switch for 15 minutes or so, you can kind of live with that, give somebody a rest, maybe it's Jericho Simmons, Preston Achua, before they come back into the game. I'm okay with doing it that way, because Randle against other 5s on offense, it's like food. He's going to destroy everybody. He's a physical specimen. Nobody can stop him. Maybe Sabonis is probably the only 5 I can think that's strong enough. Steven Adams is another one because he's a beast, but you got to be that level of strong to stop somebody like Randle. So I think the Knicks are going to be able to do it. They're going to have to do that. It affects my win total a little bit. Maybe they're under 60 now, given the Mitch situation, because I don't know what's going to happen to the beginning of the year if it affects their strong start. But they're still going to be a top team in the East, still very good, and still a team that you have to worry about come the postseason.
Do you have any concerns? I know you mentioned the Sixers, which I thought was a good point about Embiid and George, their best players being injury prone. But Julius Randle now has a serious injury history. Mitch Robinson has a serious history. OG Anunoby plays typically about 50 games a year. Jalen Brunson coming off wrist surgery, but no serious injuries, I guess, on his end. But there's a list of Knicks that have had some injuries in the past. Does any of that concern you as you reference kind of the Sixers with injury problems, that maybe some of the Knicks are starting to pile that up? But to your point, they have a lot of depth, right? The Knicks are very deep and can overcome some of that in the regular season. But do you have any fears of the Knicks now with guys that have had some injuries in the past?
Not with Randle at all. A lot of people do. I think Randle's 2 injuries were more freak accidents than anything else, because throughout his entire career, he has been one of the strongest players ever, even his first career. I mean, he had the major injury in his entire life, right? And then he's come back from that. Not only has he come back from that, but he become an all-star because of that. So he's already shown you he can come back from injury and thrive. And the injuries he's dealt with, like I said, they're more freak accidents than anything else. I think that Randle, given the offense he's going to be playing in right now, the fact that some nights he's not going to be the number 2. He might be number 3 option some nights. Some nights we're riding the hot hand with Dante DiVincenzo or Josh Hart. So he might not even have that big of a role some nights on offense. That's good for him and his body to allow him to rest. And that way you can get that longevity out of Randle. So I'm not too worried about Randle in that regard. Mitchell Robinson, I already told you how I feel about him. I think the writing's been on the wall for him. The Knicks need to move on. OG Anunoby, the one thing I know about OG, and I forget who wrote this, but I read that one of the main reasons that they believe OG Anunoby is so injury prone is due to his conditioning. He has poor conditioning when he comes into camp. Now, I know for Tom Thibodeau, that's not even an option. You can't be in poor condition to play for Tom Thibodeau. So I think the conditioning that he's going to receive from the Knicks and all of those things combined, how he's going to be playing here, I think that's going to be a factor into how long he can play for the Knicks throughout those entire time next season. The only one thing that I got to say that Tom Thibodeau needs to do is he needs to expand to 10 in order for this to work. And the way to do that is reduce the starting minutes. If they're 35, reduce it to 30 and give the rest of those minutes to the bench. You do that, you make the little bit of sacrifice. The Knicks are going to run through teams anyways, Alex. We already know that. We're going to destroy so many teams. So we're going to be able to do this. So when that happens anyways, by the time we get to a point where we can rest our starters and we have that shift and that chemistry understood, when we get to the postseason, we'll have the healthiest Knicks team possible. And if that happens, the Knicks are going to the NBA Finals, in my opinion, because the Boston Celtics are the only team that can stop us. And if the Knicks are healthy at that point in time, good luck to Boston.
Yeah, and the Knicks have the best bench in the league. Like, let's be real. They're the best bench in the league. They have Deuce McBride, who can start on a lot of teams. Dante DiVincenzo can start on a lot of teams. Josh Hart is coming off the bench now. Preston Achua is a good backup, and the Mitchell Robinson, the injury hurts, and not having Hartenstein hurts, because the thing that made the Knicks so dangerous last year is that they had 2 legitimate starting centers, and at all times they had a starting center on the floor, and one that could pass, and one that can block, and one that can rebound. Both can rebound, both can block. It was perfect, and that's why it hurt losing Hartenstein, especially with Mitch being hurt. I wasn't really worried about that until Mitch got hurt. I'm repeating myself from earlier. The team that scares me in the East that no one is talking about is Milwaukee. Dame Lillard came in a late offseason trade, moved his whole family from Portland, or himself. I don't know. I know he got divorced or whatever. So that was up in the air. Like, it was a rough start for him. Now they have a whole full offseason. They were injured last year. They're coming into this year. I know Middleton is toast, but just Dame and Giannis together with this offseason and a real training camp, it's going to be that's a team that nobody is talking about. And the Magic taking a step also could be a little scary with Banchero. Those Pacers. 2 teams, the Pacers, I'm not worried about the Pacers, but those 2 teams are, yes, I'm purposely dismissing the Pacers. The Bucks and the Magic, I think, are 2 teams that nobody's really talking about in the East, and that could be a little scary, especially the Bucks.
Well, I think it's a good point on the Bucks. I do think Knick fans minimize the Celtics title. I don't know why.
Everybody does, not just Knicks fans.
Well,
everybody
they won
does.
66 games, and
They
looked
beat nobody in
incredible.
the playoffs, though. They had an easy ride to the playoff and through the playoffs.
They did, but
Yeah.
to their credit, they lost a player, and Porzingis could overcome it. Knicks lost guys in the playoffs, couldn't overcome it.
Well, they
So to the
lost like
Celtics-
half their team. Yeah,
Right.
it wasn't
Well,
one guy.
well,
you know,
to the Celtics credit, they lost Porzingis. I think there's this idea like
the Knicks lost Randle, and they
Celtics-
got far without Randle.
the
You know,
Celtics won the championship. They
Yeah.
won 66
They did.
games. You
They did.
can't just
and they did beat
sit
Kyrie and
there
Luka in the
and
finals.
just be they're not, and they're in their prime. I believe that the Knicks can contend, but I can't sit here and just push the Celtics to the side like that did not happen. It did happen. And the Pacers did advance to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They did beat the Knicks. So they are a legitimate basketball team with Pascal Siakam and Halliburton. And
But
Turner.
the Knicks were up 2-0 on them until they really went down. I mean, like, I'm not worried about the Pacers,
But I
man.
can't
I'm
say
really
that
not.
the Pacers are. You don't have to worry about it, but the Knicks do. I'm sorry, they still beat them, and they did. Like they advanced.
Yes,
They're a team
they
that's-
technically
the East is
beat
a
them.
deep-
Yes.
The East is deep. I'm saying all these teams. The Nets are going to win 3 games. All these
Right.
teams are going to beat the shit out of the Nets. These are good basketball teams. Magic are getting better. Their best player is 22 years old. So yeah, like it's easy. It's easy when you're in. Trust me, I know this very well. There are other teams. The Knicks are definitely in the top, but yeah, let's
See what
not
happens.
forget the Celtics. Please, they did win the championship.
The
I
Celtics
give-
need another title to legitimize that ring, though. But
I
go ahead,
give-
Troy.
I
Yeah.
give all the respect to the Celtics. I do.
Thank
I
you.
really do. I hate them, but I give them all the respect in the world for what they've done. They had the easiest route to a championship,
I
but it's
used to hate
still a
them.
championship. They
Yeah.
still have a
It still
championship.
counts. Listen,
It
Knicks
still
won it that
counts.
way. We'd count it.
Right,
You know,
exactly. So I have
yeah.
no problem. But
Yeah.
when you think about the Celtics and their 2 best weapons, it's you could say White and some of the other players, but it's really Tatum and Brown, right?
Right.
And now we have Mikal and OG.
Yeah, and they
So
lost
let's see.
Horford also, who was a big
So-
part of that team. Yeah,
So all I want to do is say, then let's see what happens now. Because
That's the
before
fun part.
we
Yes.
were competing with them, we were taking it to them. It wasn't like the games were blowouts between us. They were very competitive games, actually.
kicked
But
their ass at
now-
the end of the year when we were healthy.
Well, nobody wants to give us that game because
No,
apparently
they
didn't
pulled the
play
starters. They were losing by
Yeah.
30, and then they pulled everybody.
Right.
The
Yeah,
problem
yeah.
is, I don't know if it's people want to give that game. It doesn't matter in the scheme of what happened. Like the Celtics went on and won the championship. That was a regular season game. The Knicks won. So in this course of a season, Knick fans will be like, "Oh, look what we did. We beat the Celtics in the regular season." But in the course of winning a title, that just doesn't matter. It's about what happens in the playoffs.
Right.
And
It's survival of the fittest.
Yes.
I get it. But it's
and
still,
I just have to minimize all the joy
Of
that you
course.
have.
the wet blanket, the Nets wet blanket. over
So
everything.
welcome to it. How do you think the Nets do this year, Troy? What is your outlook on Brooklyn?
Oh boy.
Better be bad. Better say
Yeah,
bad.
it's very bad. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I'm hoping that Cam Johnson
Tom.
gets.
Oh,
No,
Cam Johnson.
I hope he gets
Yeah.
an actual a jump in his game because I feel like last year with Mikal, I think he was injured as well too, right? So
He was
I mean,
hurt. Yeah.
right. So I mean, like there's a lot of things going against him, but usually when he was on, I remember he was a very good player. I mean, there was one point they were talking about getting a couple of picks for him because he was so high on in terms of what he was doing, especially after the trade. I think he can come into his own, be a lot more efficient. Cam Thomas, I forget who on ESPN said that Cam Thomas could be, scoring leader or champion, whatever this
Could.
season.
Yeah.
Because of all the shots he might take. I guess
Could.
that's fair.
Well, he was scoring 40 and 50 points, like in
Right.
Jericho when he barely had any shots. You know what I mean? So
Listen,
definitely possible.
I guess. I mean, I
Be a
don't.
fantasy
I don't,
demon, Cam Thomas.
I'm telling you, man. Look, I picked Ben Simmons on my fantasy team. He's the only person left on like the last totem pole. So I picked him. So hopefully, I mean, listen, I'm hoping. Listen,
It's a
if he
bad
gives
decision.
me 8 and 8, I'm cool with that off the bench. That's fine. It don't
Well, he'll
matter.
do it for 10
The-
games.
The,
Yeah.
the beauty, though, I will say the beauty of the Nets is how fast things can change. Just like, don't be surprised if in a couple years this is not as dark as it is. It was way darker last year with Mikal on the team and where they were going. It's so much better now with opportunity and options. It's at least there's light at the end of the tunnel that this team can actually at some point achieve success. Now, I'm sure it won't happen because I've never seen it ultimately, but at least there's opportunity now. And the Nets need to be bad this year. I mean, I think the goal is to suck.
Can I ask you, Mike? Because I'm so curious for Net fans. What is your happiness like nowadays? Like, what makes you happy about this? I looked at the team like before I came on the show, and I was thinking to myself, like, God, if I was a fan of this franchise, I'd probably feel like I felt 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah,
worse
no,
probably.
I respect that because I know how many bad Knicks teams you watched in your life. I will say from my end, the Nets last year with Mikal Bridges were stuck in the middle and they didn't have draft picks, right? So
Right.
Mikal Bridges at his best isn't the best player on a team. Now with the Knicks, when he's the third, fourth option and he's the final title piece, but with the Nets, he wasn't the go-to guy. The Nets now have flexibility, they have cap space, and they have a bevy of draft picks that they can use as assets to make other moves down the line. And they have their own draft picks back. The Nets now have a future. They're going to be terrible this year, but they're going to be terrible for a reason. Like, think about your excitement the year of the RJ Barrett, Ja Morant, Zion draft. When the Knicks were bad that year, you knew they had cap space and they were going to have a top pick. There's at least something to look forward to. Alex said it. That's where the Nets are right now. That's where they are. And I'm more excited for this season than I was for last season. Not the year before when they had Durant and Kyrie. Not going to say that. But now at least young development, your own draft picks, at least you're tanking properly. Yeah, the roster sucks. And Cam Johnson will be dealt. And Dorian Finney-Smith will be dealt. But the roster sucks, but in the right way. So I'm excited about that.
But Knicks fans have experience at this, Mike. Troy and I can tell you how to go through this season. You're going to watch a lot of Duke.
Yeah,
you're going to watch a lot of. You're going to do a lot of. What's the website with the lottery thing? What's it called?
Tankathon.
Tankathon. You're going to do a lot of Tankathon sims, and you're going to see who you're going to get here and there, who's losing, and at the end of the season, hopefully, there's not a Langston Galloway that keeps you out of getting Karl Anthony Towns type player. So at the end of the year,
you want to do some picks, Alex?
Yes, let's do some NFL picks. So I am on the season 10-2. We're doing 4 games a week. We're not going to do the Giants.
12-0.
Yeah, 12-0. Sure. Well, we're not going to do because Giants are playing currently right now, so we're not going to pick the Giants. But we're going to do the Jets and then 3 other games. So Jets right now. Let's see what's the spread on the Jets. Hold on, was not prepared. Oh, so Jets are -7.5 at home versus Denver. I'm picking the Jets because I think that they're going to smack the Broncos, and I think Zach Wilson gets in some mop-up duty at the end. So,
absolutely Jets, and I think it's definitely going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a good test with the defense, but I think the Jets ultimately pull it out. We've been great thus far, and I think that continues.
I'll take the Broncos. Fan, right? I'll do the Broncos just because I want to argue with Alex next week.
Broncos +7. I mean, they can still, Jets can still win.
I don't think. Yeah, and I want Zach to come in. I don't mind. I don't just. I'm a Giants fan, but I don't care. Yeah. I don't care. I'm rooting for the Jets to be well, so Alex can be happy. I don't want him with other teams. Although you're anti-Met, but whatever.
I'm not anti-Met. I just don't think that they're a real contender. That's all.
You suck. All right. Troy, do you have other teams? Did you prepared? Did Alex get you prepared? Or?
Well, he didn't. He said he'll just pick whatever we pick.
Well, the only other game that I had actually was Bills versus Baltimore, but I didn't know the spread on it. But
let's see. Hold on.
You can make it up. You make whatever you want the spread to be.
It's Bills are getting 2.5 in.
Right. I think that for me, I'm going with Bills. They're undefeated right now, so I mean that's for me what it's going to be.
I like it.
Yeah. Unstoppable.
Yeah. That's actually a good game to pick. Maybe I'll pick that one too. I think but I'm going to go opposite. I'm going to go Ravens because I think the Ravens are going to start. They started 0-2. They won last week, right? And I think they're going to start.
They can't stop the pass though, man. They're still last in the league. They can't stop the pass.
I know, but Lamar is so good, and I think it's just they're not going to be 1-3. Right. Yeah. I don't know. That's just my thoughts there. Mike, you're up.
Yeah. Well, I would say things seem to always even themselves out in the NFL. You don't typically have 15-2 teams, 16-1, 14-3. So that's why I'm with Alex here. I just think these things even out at some point, especially when we have good football teams, which Baltimore is. So I'm with Alex on the Ravens train there.
All right. Let's see. Let's get another one going here. Mike, we just do the same games, I guess.
That's fine. We'll do that. I'll pick again. Whatever you pick, I'll do the opposite for
the opposite. Spot. Okay. How about this one? Well, this is a stupid one, but we'll do it anyway. Patriots at 49ers. The Patriots are getting 10.5. It's a tough one. because the 49ers, I don't know if they're without Debo again. We don't know who's playing.
I'll take the 49ers. I think
Where I don't know if Kittle's playing, so I think the Patriots are there. I don't know how their offensive line is looking, and I don't know without that offense. So I think I'm going to go 49ers as well.
I think the same as well too. I can't touch anything with the Patriots after last time.
Yeah, their line is fucked.
Gone, completely gone, destroyed.
All right, last one. Let's see where we got. Let's see. Let's try to get what's like game of the week.
What about Saints and Falcons? You know that rivalry.
Oh, there you
game,
go.
Right? That's a great game, right?
That looks like a good game. Okay, so the Saints are getting 2.5 in Atlanta. That's a tough one. Saints have looked good with Carr. So
they got embarrassed last week, though.
Yeah, they did. But I don't know, man. That's a tough one. Somebody else go first.
Give me the Falcons.
I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be Saints, just because I feel like they have something to prove this week, and the Falcons still trying to figure it out right now. So I think Saints got it.
Falcons after a tough loss. See them on the rebound. Okay, give me Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the Saints plus 2.5. I've got to get points somewhere. Every other game I was minus, so I'm gonna take points in this one. So our picks were. Who knows? Whatever. I have Jets minus 7.5, Ravens minus 2.5, 49ers minus 10.5, and Saints plus 2.5. So.
Let people know the amazing content you're doing for all the Knicks fans out there. Knicks Recap. Just give a nice little plug what you got going on lately, and some content for people who, I'm sure most of our fans who are listening to this know you, but who don't. Alex and I both highly recommend for some great insight, as you've heard here throughout Bad Weather Fans.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. Of course, everybody can find me on at the Knicks Recap on all social media, on YouTube, everywhere like that. Always Knicks content daily. We talk about videos each and every single day. Live streams every Friday on the afternoon. Usually a lot of different guests. My last guest was Howard Beck from The Ringer. I'm trying to get some other definitely different NBA insiders on the show to get more content out there. And the next show, we're going to be talking about who's making the Knicks final roster spot, because we had some updates on that. And the Knicks could actually make a very surprising move in their roster negotiations, maybe even taking somebody who's on a guaranteed contract and potentially waiving them to create more room. So
what was that? Bates Diop? They're going to waive Bates Diop, aren't they? It's going to be that.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to give it away.
Who would be your dream insider to get? If you get one guy.
Zach Lowe.
Really?
Actually, I think I love his basketball analysis. I think in terms of like podcast, I used to watch him before I knew what a podcast was. I didn't even know he had I didn't even know that was a podcast when I used to watch him do what he did. And then I learned that that's exactly what it was. Like, oh, it's what he just does by himself. And then everybody else started doing their own thing of it. But I felt like, just given who he is and where he is, it would have been him. Also, I would love to, when Woj was part of ESPN, I would have loved to have done that because he's a GOAT. But people like that who's been in the business for a while, there's people I've been inspired by those people. I've watched them. So I'd love to do that. Yeah. One day.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love
that would
stuff
be cool.
like that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it is cool.
I don't care who you root for. I love stuff like that. Get me choked up.
Mike's gonna become a Nick fan now. He's gonna become
we got room. We got room, I guess. Kind of a little bit.
He's
gonna start the Nets recap. No.
Right. I'm gonna come out with the Nets. Yeah, here's the Nets recap. They lost. Call me during the lottery. Thank you again for coming on Bad Weather Fans. We appreciate it. Knicks Recap, amazing stuff. Check it out. Alex has been episode 237. Our picks are in. We'll be back next week. Alex, always great to see you. Hair looks good as always. But
thank you.
Thank you again, Bad Weather Fans. Checking out.